Anyway, so just have a lunch. we live in the social media culture where people put Facebook photos of they went somewhere for lunch today. Here's your photo of their lunch. Foursquare. It used to be Foursquare. Before COVID, it was Foursquare. You know, in COVID, how you have to be contact traced. People was like, oh, that's a breach of people's civil liberties. The government hasn't got the right to know what your movements are and whether or not you took a crap or went to a shop. Why did Foursquare have the right to know? Or Facebook or whatever? Yet, nonetheless, people were doing it. So here we are in the Foursquare social media. Look, it's a sausage roll. This sausage roll is a traditional one. It's a locally made one. Won't say which brand, because I might give away location for whoop whoop. Anyway, but it's just generic whoop whoop. It is locally made. But it has a sort of like a. It doesn't feel old school, and it could be because like it was microwaved. A bunch of them we got from the shop that sells them, and stuck in the freezer for later, because it's a really easy feed to do. You know, just stick it in the microwave, bake some tomato sauce on it, and you've got a meal. You know, it's a $3 meal. It's pretty good. It's high in calories and fat and carbohydrates. It's got a small amount of protein in it. Actually, a fair amount of protein because it's meat. And so, other than minerals from vegetables, you mostly get a good tucker out of it. Cheap feed. Sausage roll with tomato sauce. Chips. A sausage roll with tomato sauce these days is cheaper than chips with gravy. Instead of old style white fella Australian, you know, because that's where the foods came from. White fellas in Australia, food like that, you know, like pasties and stuff like that, you know, from Cornwall, are still popular. In some places, you can go to a shop and you can get a pasty or a baker's. They still sell pasties. The great news is there's all these other varieties as well. Like some bakeries you can go to, you can get baklava. Have you ever tried baklava? It's like this Middle Eastern food or something that's almost pure sugar. It's like 10 different types of sugar with like this really delicate pastry. And if you have see this bit here, right? If you have this much baklava, okay, that's considered a massive serve, because the amount of sugar in it, right, it's like about 3 days worth of sugar. Like, it's very sweet food. And baklava, you know, that wok food. We're going to be politically incorrect. We reckon, rather than Musk's nasty salute and Trump's sent us into a fake throne, activating everyone in the world to be anti-racist in response to it, which, by the way, is what actually happened. We actually reckon over here right now that the white power movement's been given the green light. So, to this face here, they're not allowed to talk about their Maori or Chinese ancestors, or possibly Cherokee. One family historian reckons it's Cherokee as well. But that is one of those 162 things, like, literally. So, it's probably not worth worrying about. Apparently, the 162 issue in the USA is such a thing. They actually have that phrase, the 162 or so. Again, don't worry about it. Um, Eli, yeah. Um, 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 the, um, the, some people reckon there might be Curie as well. Um, just it's just one of those things. If your ancestors arrived in Australia, during the first or second fleet, like if any of them were convicts, there's a pretty good chance that one of your ancestors was an Aboriginal woman. They had a shortage of women. There were women convicts, but mostly not. um, um, and same with the gold rush and things like that. They had a short the invader class, whether they were voluntary invaders or not. Convicts weren't voluntary, by the way. Um, had a shortage of women. So, um, yeah, people have people definitely have more ancestors than they realise. It's not always the case. It's just um, possible. And so, when they did the White Australia policy, the orphanages and the stolen generation stuff like that, um, it didn't actually emotionally didn't start that way. Don't get it wrong. There was racism and sexism and brutality. We can have that negative talk if you want. There's also the other side of thing of um, ooh, you're different. Oh, he looks a bit different. He's kind of pale. Oh, oh, hey, Mister. Mm, Um, what clothes? Why are you wearing clothes like that for? You look weird. Do you have to wear them because you're wear trousers that are bigger than a loincloth because your dick's bigger? No, really. Some people actually did that. It wasn't true. Not everyone did that. It wasn't all white fellas raping black fellas, okay? Um, that happened too, but that's not all that it was. Sometimes it was just a legitimate case of they were the only two people 200 kilometres. What do you think they were going to do? Yeah. Yeah. Some white fellas got off a boat. The trip cost them at first used to take about 18 months. There's a few hundred of them. Can you imagine them? Several hundred stinky white men in conditions where they're in chains and irons, in hulls. Wait, they weren't African? No, they're white fellas. They're Irish people mostly, but not exclusive. They're also English people, right? Okay, and they're in chains in the hull, stinking like last month's dog shit, and covered in it, and they've all got bloody scurvy. It takes 18 months to get there, and they all get told, "You're all useless. You're all useless. You're fucking useless dregs of British society," you know, right? And some of them, interestingly enough, were Africans that were from the free slave class in England that didn't have the social advantages of other people, pickpocketed and went up on the prison ships in up the Thames, and then got transported, right? So the first fleet there was African people. Apparently there was like two of them. There were about 1,000 people. There was two people who were Africans, and they were convicts. And there was about 500 Irish or something like that, because they were mostly dealing with the prisoners in England at that point, and by the second fleet or third fleet, they were cleaning up the Irish rebels. You had another rebellion in Dublin, did you? You had another rebellion in the southern counties. You're going to Australia now. So that's where the rum rebels came from, pretty much. And so, there probably wasn't a lot of people who liked the English aristocracy amongst them. They probably didn't like them. I mean, you think about it, the Pommies had lost their land in the tragedy of the Commons, been completely ripped off by the Industrial Revolution, had been treated like absolute fucking morons allegedly for the previous 1,000 years or so, and then after they'd had everything taken from them, were being worked to death in these workhouses and coughing on fucking fumes, and if they just so happened to, you know, accrue a debt or pick a pocket, they were shoved on these overcrowded prison ships in the Thames, and then instead of like, you know, some kind of social justice imperative happening to prevent crime and congestion and overcrowding and poor hygiene and all the things that were going on, they were treated like garbage and dumped on a foreign country. Even the English ones would not have been impressed by that. The African ones would have been like, yeah, don't like you. Went up in England due to slavery in the first place. Got freed and that, but that didn't make much of a difference. All right, now, don't like you. And the Irish were just like, oh, fuck the bloody Poms. Pew, 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 pew. Right? Okay? And that pretty much covers everyone that was a convict. Okay? They didn't like the Redcoat Army. Okay? Every last one of those people would have been doing potentially one of three things. They would have been like, get the fuck away from here, you're on a foreign continent, just run away from those guys. Go somewhere else. Try your luck out in the woods somewhere. Hey, there's people out there. See if you can hang out with them. And that happened. There would have been people who would have tried to shoot the Redcoats. They did. It was called the Rum Rebellion. There would have been people who tried to cozy up to the Redcoats as sort of means by which they could become part of a higher social class than they were back home. Yes, they did do that too. Okay, and then there's another option. The other option is the ones who just wanted to save money to get back home once their 7 years was up. And it's interesting that they needed to save money for that because they didn't have money at all. With the Rum Rebellion representing an attempted alternate economy based on rum barter, and the governorship not approving. Don't know. It doesn't follow. I mean, they were literally on the other side of the planet, so they were nowhere near the English treasury, so they couldn't get any little sovereigns and pounds or whatever. And sort of would make more sense for them to trade seashells or something. You know, if they were doing barter that way, or exchange economies or whatever. It's sort of like we're not even sure that that the money even mattered, because weren't the convicts used for slave labour? Like while they were in their chains, they were in work gangs, but they were digging trenches and building farmhouses and stuff, weren't they? So, isn't that slavery? Huh. Oh. They weren't enslaved for life. It was only for 7 years. Oh. But then the governor told them where they could go to have a farm. Oh. And they're expected to work there to produce stuff for the colony as well. Oh. Oh. But the governor didn't ask permission of the people that lived there. Oh. Oh. Okay. So they had no jurisdictional authority whatsoever, these redcoats. They had no jurisdictional authority whatsoever. They were completely and utterly divorced by a factor of it took 18 months by ship to get there. Later on it took 9 months, but at that point it was 18 months. And And none of the people in the colony liked them. And you can rest assured that the people that were already there didn't either. Technically, they were the ones being encroached upon, so they had something to say about it. But so the only people that liked the redcoats were the redcoats. Oh, wait a minute, and most of them were conscripts. And they were in a foreign land where they could defect and run away and potentially get away with it. How the heck did any of that continue? How come there wasn't a complete revolt and it just, fell apart? Why not? Was the French and American ship there because they only wanted liberty, justice, and fraternity and equality in their own countries? Oh wait, hang on. The French did, because they had outlawed slavery around the same time as the English did, which happened to be 50 years after. Or was it 30 years after the colonists rose? So hang on. Wait, so those Africans were actually slaves that became... How does that work again? Hang on. And well, the Americans hadn't outlawed slavery yet either. So hang on. So they were there to create a slave colony. Oh, because they hadn't outlawed slavery at all. Oh, okay then. How come they didn't have Aboriginal people like in the original slave colony? Oh, they had to do a genocidal war campaign and round them up, put them in missions to make their minds unfree so they'd be capable of being slaves. Oh, so they didn't rebel not because they liked the redcoats, but because their minds had been enslaved. Oh, okay. So when did the idea of whiteness get invented? The 1700s? No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't, was it? It was the 1800s, wasn't it? Yeah, it was. Ah, so white power got invented by Rudyard Kipling. But he didn't invent racism, though. No. So why did they abduct the black guys from Africa again? Like, that was pretty fucking racist. It's not like they were abducting the white guys from Africa. There were some there, There was a Roman Empire once. Unless Roman Empire wasn't white. So that's a good point. Also, didn't the Arab Renaissance have empires and stuff, so people were traveling around. So there was already white guys in Africa when that happened. I don't know. They probably were. So how come they abducted the black guys, not the white guys from Africa? Racism. Oh. But didn't they say it was the East India Company had gold? Wanted gold from other countries, and Africa had gold, just like South America. Yeah. Wasn't there other excuse that they had the social hierarchy thingamajig where they thought the better the better people were the ones that had bigger buildings and crap? Yeah. Then how come in West Africa there's a Milanese empire and they have big castles and stuff? And that's where they were abducting the people from. Wait, that doesn't add up either. And also the South Africans had pyramids. Wait. So they weren't abducting people because they was black or dark skinned or because they thought their buildings weren't big enough. It's because they had gold. But how come they didn't have South Africans as slaves? So they just murdered them. Oh. Yes, they did. Yeah, they did. Cortez took over from Montezuma and had a lot of them people turn into slaves. Oh, but they were okay with it, weren't they? Because, like, their predecessor empire sometimes had slavery from a different empire in the neighborhood. Like Aztecs and Tolmecs or something like that used to have fights and crap. Yeah. Hmm. When they're competing like empires or empires in Africa too, and some of them had made each other as slaves. Yeah. Yeah, they were. Oh. And didn't the slave traders come and like give some of those guys money to like steal people? Yeah, they did. And sometimes guns as well. Oh. So were they really motivated by racism then? No. What were they motivated by? They had a callous disregard for the rights of others, and they were motivated by profit. Okay. So they were callous then? Yeah. Hmm. So you could take away all the excuses then. Money, racism, yeah, hang on. Differences in quote unquote achievement. And what's really behind it is some form of psychopathy that's projecting out a bunch of nonsense arguments as excuses for said behaviour, and sometimes in a post hoc sense. They really were just bad people. So what's white power again? Technically, um, um, white people are brown skinned Indians that turn pale in the cold. Um, um, well, actually, no. Europeans are Africans went to Europe at the end of the Ice Age, and their skin turned paler. And then Indians went there too. Yeah. Um, and when that happened, the Middle East got invented. Yeah. And while that was going on, there was changes happening in the Mediterranean and Africa. Yeah. And they went up inventing empires. Yeah. And invading Europe. So in other words, Europeans or Africans that lived that turned pale because they were living in the snow. Yeah. Okay, so Europeans are Africans that lived in the snow. Mostly. Yeah. You, white people are black people.